this is along the lines of a question David asked a couple weeks ago, but as a head coach, you've been in situations where you went into your conference tournament knowing you had to win it to get to the NCAAs.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case this year. How does that change things for you, your approach, if it does at all?
I mean, I love the tournaments. I mean, we want to try to compete and win in any tournament we're in, regardless of what time of year it is. If it's in November, you want to do your best, and that helps prep you for the rest of the season. Obviously, this time of year, it's really exciting. March is spectacular, and the ACC tournament's going to be really fun, this week, and we're excited to be a part of it.
I mean, do your players feel less pressure than they might otherwise, though, do you think?
I mean, certainly, if you're on the bubble, yeah, there's a lot of pressure that goes into it. But, I think our guys are just focused on just trying to win. I mean, last year for us at VCU, I can remember being in that moment. And our guys were committed. They weren't really concerned about the NCAA tournament. They wanted to win the championship. They wanted to cut down the nets. And I think we're in a similar situation, here at Virginia. There's been a tradition of excellence that has existed. You look at the banners up top, and you see the teams that have been fortunate to cut down the nets in this tournament and advance in the NCAA tournament. VCU was similar, and that particular team wanted to make their mark, and I think that's where we're at. At this point, we're going to go for it.
Jackie, then you.
Sam Lewis, last game against Virginia Tech, really bounced back from his earlier two-game performance. How much have you seen him just grow mentally, a guy that can bounce back from those frustrations, and how integral has been part of your program this year?
Yeah, that was a really positive sign, for all of us. Sam has been awesome all year, and you're always going to have some ups and downs throughout the season. And I thought he did a great job in that game. And even the last game, he got in foul trouble. He only played 13 minutes, but there were some dynamite possessions where he really guarded well. And sometimes you're not going to shoot it like you want to. But the aggressiveness was back, the confidence was back, and it was great to see.
You said March is spectacular. That's a lesson you learned at quite an early age. Mm-hmm. What are your early and fondest memories of this event that you're about to go?
ACC tournament.
Yes.
Yeah.
And were you able to get away from Hampton-Sydney to see your dad's championships?
Yes. I was there. I think I was there for one of them, for sure. Maybe both. Yeah, I think both, actually. But, yeah, I remember, going, as a youngster when Dad was an assistant here, going to the tournament. I certainly remember while he was coaching at Wake Forest, those years going and being a part of it. And, winning back-to-back, championships is extremely hard to do. And, I still say that one team that he had the second year they were playing as well as anybody in the country, and ended up being a number one seed that year. But then, unfortunately, Tony Rutland, tore his ACL in that championship game, and that changed kind of the trajectory of the NCAA tournament, for them. But just really happy. I was happy that he was able to do it, there, or his team was able to do it there in Greensboro, where he and my mom first met at Guilford College when they were in college together, and my mom grew up right there in Greensboro. My grandmother's house was, 2 minutes from that arena, and so it was really, really neat to see Dad, cut down the nets with people that he loves.
You have a lot of guys who have experience, who've played conference tournaments. They haven't played the ACC tournament, but now they've played an ACC season. How does that experience prepare them? I know it's a different event, but prepare them for this kind of a week?
Yeah, I think these guys have been motivated to play in the NCAA tournament, since they arrived on campus. And so that certainly was the number one goal, is to get back there and to have a chance, in March. Part of that is playing well in the ACC tournament. And, these guys have heard about, all the great games in the ACC tournament and what a big stage it is, to play on. And so they're fired up about it. But, I think one of the biggest things when we put the roster together is we wanted to have a deep roster that had a wealth of experience. And, I think to your point, we're hopeful. It has helped us all year. There's no question about it. We're hopeful that it helps us in a, three-day stretch.
Kind of going off of that experience standpoint, for you personally, you've coached in a number of conference tournaments in a variety of different conferences. You've won a couple of those. What are some of the biggest lessons you feel like you've learned from your coaching career when it comes to this time of year?
Yeah, you just want your guys at this time of year to have, really fresh legs, clear minds. At this point, you know how you have to play in order to compete to win. And ultimately, a lot of it comes down to, can you get the stop when you need it? Can you score the basket when you need it? Because a lot of these games are tight. And, I think our guys they now have some shared experience, after having gone through an entire regular season. And we've had, some ups and downs and been taught some lessons and been able to win and learn lessons, at the same time, which is great. And so, we'll just lean on that experience, heading into the tournament.
Coach, this is a while back, but you guys read Legacy by James Kerr over the summer as part of a book club. Looking back on the regular season, can you just reflect a little bit about, especially the seniors, the guys that are leaving, how they've left the jersey in a better place, as you guys read about in the book all that time ago?
No, that's why we read the book. It is all about leaving the jersey in a better place and connecting them back to their past, which is the tradition that Virginia basketball is. And it's been really neat. Even the other night, you had the 76 team here, the first championship team, and obviously we know a lot of those players, Wally Walker in particular, the star of that team. And, I think our guys have been motivated all year to learn about it, but also be about it at the same time and make their own mark, because that's what the book's really about at the end. It's every team has that one life to live, and what's the legacy that you're going to leave, when you're out. And the 5 seniors, to your point, they could not have done a better job of leading this group. They led with passion, competitiveness, a love for one another, a love for this place, and on down to the end. You see them out there doing the old song, singing the old song with the fans. And that was something that they decided they wanted to do, and go out there and do that with everybody. So I thought that was a really cool gesture about them.
Yeah, Coach, looking back at this regular season, your starting lineup hasn't changed. The rotation's been stable. The minutes haven't really fluctuated that much. I'm sure that's kind of what you planned, but what's that like to see that consistency, and what does it say about this team?
Yeah, it says a lot. About the sacrifice. I asked the seniors the other day, the guys that, come off the bench, if they wanted to start on senior night, and I certainly was willing to do that and switch it up. And they were like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to keep it the way that it is, and we're comfortable where we're at in our roles, and we don't want to do anything, especially in a big game like this. We want to stay where we're at. And so I think ultimately, this entire team has sacrificed the entire year. And you look at successful organizations, you look at successful basketball teams or any sporting team, there's going to be a common theme of sacrifice throughout. And, this team has done a really good job. The individuals on this team have done a really good job of, sacrificing a bit of themselves for the greater good of the team. And that's one thing that our coaching staff is really thankful for and proud of these guys for, because it's a lifelong lesson that they'll, be able to take away from here.
Ryan, you talked about your history with your dad at Virginia and Wake Forest, and then, of course, at Virginia Tech. But what does it mean personally to you to take your own team into the ACC tournament for the first time? And did your dad, along the way, ever give you any experience about tournament or advice about tournament basketball?
Yeah, he always gives me advice. You're not in the tournament until you win a game. And so that's the first thing we say. You win the first game, then you're in the tournament. You don't win one, you weren't in the tournament. So a little bit of pressure there. But, I've always taken that mindset, going in. It's, these one day preps, and we've been doing that all year. When you're in a bigger conference like we are now, the guys are used to it, and now we're going to be playing, these teams for, second, maybe third time, depending on who we match up with, and the guys will be excited to do that. But yeah, it means a ton, for me personally to be able to lead a team. I didn't know if I would ever, have the opportunity to do that, and it certainly is really special. It's a place that I grew up, or tournament that I grew up going to as a youngster. I wasn't a Big East guy or a Big Ten guy or whatever. I grew up, in the ACC, and so, to me, I'm biased, but it's the best basketball conference that's ever, been assembled, and the tournament certainly, is the best ever. So I'm excited about, the opportunity to coach in it.
Andrew, and then Chris. Ryan, early on this season, you established that tradition of handing out, I believe, a saber after the game.
Yeah, they do a little whatever.
What went into? We've seen the photos of it. We've seen the video of them doing it. What went into that?
I've just coached at too many places, and like you have to figure out after you win a game, like what are you going to do with the team? And at Utah State, we had a the main building on campus was lit up. It had an A that would light up, and so in the valley, in Cache Valley is what it's called. You could see it. Like I could literally see it from my house. The deck of my house, I'd look out and I could see this A. And it was only lit up when a team won. And so we, if we won a game, it would be lit up. If football was on the road and they won a game, it would light up. And so you could do it from a computer or whatever. Yeah. And so we brought that into our locker room. We had this unfortunate, what do you call that? Just a pillar or a beam, whatever. We had this unfortunate beam in the middle of our locker room. And so I had an A put on every, side of that unfortunate, just I'm a decorative guy. And so then we had a switch put on it. And so every time we won a game, after the game, I would pick a player to light the A inside the locker room. And then we would do it on the road, after we won a game, they'd go up to the computer and light it, which was really, really cool. So that was the first example of it. LR, we just, we danced and made fun of one another and had a great time. VCU was special. I mean, they had their own traditions that I just kept going, back from probably Shaka days and all that. And I definitely had a conversation with Coach Bennett about, the traditions that they had here and all that. But I just settled on the saber. Why not? We got the sword. They do it for the pictures, and I said, let's do it. And then they have their own way of doing it. I just pick a player.
I was going to say, what goes into who gets to
I
do
just
it?
pick it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just pick it.
Do they have to check a certain box during a game? Is it?
No, I mean, that's just like who was the guy that day. And sometimes it's hard to pick, you could have two guys. And, one day I picked Dallin, and Dallin handed it over to Johan. It was the day that Johan had 8 blocks. And so it's pretty cool.
Does that thing travel?
What's that?
Can you get that through airport security?
I don't know. Michael Crowder's in charge of it, so he usually brings it. Yeah.
Coach, Ugo was in here after the game on Saturday, and he was talking about kind of player leadership, and he said something that I thought was interesting. He said, we listen, like they listen to each other.
Yeah.
Did you see that from the beginning? How have you seen that evolve over the course of the season, and how do you think it's contributed?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to learn, right? Is if you're always talking and you have all the answers, then you're probably going to miss something. And I think these guys do a great job of listening not only to their coaches but to one another. And when you have that type of communication that goes on, whether it's in a practice, in a heated situation, or in a game, in a timeout, in a huddle, it can propel you the next time you're in that situation if it goes well. And I think, when bad things happen naturally in sports, and that's a relative thing, obviously, bad plays happen. You can tend to go down a wormhole sometimes, and it leads to 2 bad plays, and then 3, and then 4, and that's where you need your teammates and your coaches to pull you out of that. And the only way that you're going to be able to get out of that is to lock eyes with somebody and listen with your eyes and your ears. And I think we've just encouraged our guys to be really present and in those moments and understand that it's not meant to be easy. Like, it's meant to be hard. And, like, you're going to be in these moments that you're going to have to pull through. And you're not going to be able to do it yourself. You're going to need somebody else there with you to help you do that. And I think that's probably what he's referring to, is they've all, in their own way, had these ups and downs. She just asked me about Sam. Well, his teammates helped pull him out of that. And, I think that's when you have a special team.
Just with getting these last 2 wins at home, and just when you look back on the regular season with the runs that you guys have been on, how can you bring all that momentum and that experience into this ACC tournament, but then just the rest of the postseason too?
Yeah, I think we just, we have to trust, the process and trust the work that's been put in so far this season. And again, going back to what I just said, realizing that it's not meant to be easy. We're going to be in some tough situations in Charlotte, and certainly in the NCAA tournament as well, but we've got a body of work, and we have a history together and shared experience to lean on, and we've got to just trust that the guys are going to be ready to make the plays when they need to.
We've got time for 5 more. Go ahead, Greg.
You guys played at the Spectrum Center earlier this year. Was any of that by design, knowing the ACC tournament would be played there, to get your guys in the building, and how do you think that helps?
Yeah, there's no question about it. You always want to try to do that if you can, and every year's going to be different. You're not always going to be able to do it, but it worked out this year, and so we took the opportunity to go down there and play, and it was a great atmosphere. The guys obviously are familiar with it now, and so hopefully that'll be helpful.
Jackie, then Jeff.
This kind of goes in the theme of leadership, and you talked a little bit about helping guys in the huddle. Devin Tillis is someone who you can really see that when he was hurt, he was in that huddle. He was talking to guys after they missed a shot and really propelling them forward. How much have you seen him develop that, or is that something that he just came in? And how big was he having that veteran leadership in the locker room when things kind of go up and down?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we brought Devin here, or asked him to come here, was because he's been a part of winning organization at UC Irvine. They won 30 games, a year ago, I believe. And when you're around winning like that, you get a sense of, and everybody doesn't do it exactly the same, but you have this experience to draw from. And so you don't get rattled, when you're in that, you've had that type of experience. And so we wanted that, with this particular group, and Devin certainly provides that. And it doesn't hurt that, he's a very outgoing person and not afraid to talk, and he's not afraid to be vulnerable and speak up in big moments, and that's been really helpful for this team, all season long. He's been a tremendous leader, for this group.
Okay. Jeff and Mike.
Johan and Ugo played early in the season on the court together at times, but not so much of late. What about their relationship have you seen? They seem to kind of split time, and I guess potentially that could be a situation where one wants more time than the other, and they seem to coexist very well. What have you seen What have you seen in their relationship this year?
Yeah, I mean they get along really well, and I know they both individually have had some really high moments, and they've had some moments where they needed some assistance, and that going back to the Dallin. When he gave the sword over to Johan, Ugo was actually the one that said, yeah, I mean, he had 8 blocks in the game. This guy was pretty good today. And so I think, it just is an example of just the teamwork and the camaraderie, that this group has. And those two understand they're a big part of our success, and they want to play well. When they're out there, and they want their buddy to play well, when they're not out there. And I think that's huge.
Okay, 2 more. We've got Mike and then Thomas.
Giving up the sword is sort of an example of unselfishness from Dallin. And he's a guy who, his scoring numbers aren't huge, doesn't take a lot of shots.
Yeah.
But you guys are obviously very fond of what he brings to the court.
Yeah.
What is it about him that is so valuable to this team?
Yeah, he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. And if that means getting the stop on the last possession at SMU, or it's guarding the other team's best guard or player and coming up with a defensive rebound, making the free throws, when we need him to. His assist-to-turnover ratio is ridiculous. He's just a tremendous, tremendous player, but he's an even better leader. And, we needed him to be that, for this particular team. And we would not be where we're at right now, if it wasn't for his leadership and his overall play.
Coach, you've spoken a bit today already about sort of community within this team, as well as sort of your memories around basketball and coaching. When you look back at the past 6 months or so with this team, and I assume you will not be in the Virginia uniform next year, do you have a fondest memory or set of memories that you think you'll carry with you heading forwards?
Hopefully we're not there yet, right? I mean, we have had some great memories so far, but hopefully there are a lot more to come. I mean, that's the plan. And, I think these guys have brought a lot of joy, to the University of Virginia this season. They brought a ton of joy, more than we probably deserve, as coaches. And, we'll be thankful for them. I was talking to a lady the other day who was a big Virginia fan, and she was going back to the good old song. She said she got tears in her eyes watching the guys out there with the cheerleaders and everybody doing that, because she was thinking, man, these 5 guys are gone now. And it was quick. And, sometimes, it does happen too fast. And my wife and I always say, this is in November, March will be here before you know it. And it happens like that. And, these guys have taken us on a tremendous, tremendous ride.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll make our way down.